CASHAPP community, welcome back to week 6. I'm a little sad today. It's the last one. It's the last class with Keenan Booker on the Voodoo edition, but it's one that is going to be for the books. It's probably the most important one out of the entire series. So sit back and relax and let the Master Blaster himself give you the information that you need to move your life forward. What's going on, Keenan Booker?
Man, what's going on, man? It's been a wild little Leo season, I guess, right now. It's pretty much for everybody, especially in Alabama, right? They're over there rocking and rolling, okay?
Hey, man. It's the fading in the water, as they call it.
The Negro has descended. Do you understand?
Yes. From air, water, and sea, bro.
Air, water. Like you said, that was the real nigga etiquette right there.
No
right?
doubt. No doubt.
We come in with the chair for your monkey ass.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
We didn't have our sword or anything or the hammer, so we just use a chair, that's what we do.
Right. So it looks like Miss Murphy showed up. So
what's going on, Rhonda?
Just me? Everybody.
That's all right. People look up, you know how people are. It's the last one. So people, they're like, okay, I'm gonna come in late. I'll get the replay.
I thought I was late.
I
was having some difficulty.
Or they all heading down to Alabama. That's what's probably going on right now. They all heading down to Alabama.
To be held into Niger. Feeding me on the way to Niger.
Yeah.
Oh man. So without further ado, brother, let's get started because I know we're both on a time schedule. Let's get this content ready.
Okay. If you got any questions, go ahead and interject because especially you, Mr. Shock, you have a lot of good, valid points to dig in on. This is we're going over the Carnival today, and this section was disheartening. This section flamed me up. It will flare you up because of what we discovered on what the Carnival actually is. When I was a child, I used to see this stuff on TV, and I'd be like, yo, what are these cats doing here? Like, what is this? It's millions of people out here dancing around crazy, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know that the Carnival was actually connected to the experiences of the breaking islands, the Caribbean, and everything that was happening with the slave ships and everything. But the development of our modern day stereotypes for African-American culture was built in the Caribbean. And also, of course, slavery here on the mainland in America, but it's also maintained by the Carnival. So these stereotypes are a system of maintenance. I mean, the Carnival is a system of maintenance for the stereotypes, all right? So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get on into it. Y'all can see the screen, right? The Carnival, okay. The Carnival, Lent.
Yes.
Lent means 40th in Latin. It is a religious practice in the Christian liturgical calendar that begins on Ash Wednesday and ends 6 weeks later on Holy Saturday, which is the day before Easter Sunday. The purpose of Lent is the preparation of the believer for Easter through prayer. This is done by doing penance, mortifying the flesh, repentance of sins, almsgiving, and denial of the ego. This is ritualistic towards making one selfless. It is also absolvance of the sins of all of mankind. Okay, so when they say mortifying the flesh, you've probably seen that when people are walking through the streets, hitting themselves on their back until their back is bleeding and whatnot. That is the repentance of the sins and the mortifying of the flesh. Okay. Ash Wednesday is a Christian holiday of prayer and fasting. It is preceded by Shrove Tuesday and falls on the first day of Lent, the 6 weeks of penitence before Easter. Ash Wednesday gets its name from the placing of repentance ashes on the foreheads of participants. While these phrases are being said, repent and believe in the gospel, or remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. The ashes come from burned palm leaves from the previous year's Palm Sunday celebrations. Okay. Cambole. Cambole comes from a French word meaning burnt cane. It is a precursor to Trinidad and Tobago Carnival. The emancipation occurred in 1834. After this, the festival was created by the indentured servants and freed slaves who were outlawed to partake in the Jo'overt Carnival. It also, it was originally a harvest festival. Like any other festival, there are drums, singing, dancing, and chanting that are an important part. Candomblé was the catalyst for the development of Trinidadian music. The banning of many instruments in the 1800s backfired into a new form of music that gave birth to the steel pan. The steel pan is an oil barrel upside down with its bottom pounded in. Okay. The cannes brûlées is French for candomblé. The cannes brûlées is a reenactment, which is actually a reinforcement of a slave event. It is a part of the carnival on which Carnival Friday in Trinidad, it was a situation when slaves were driven with whips, horns, and flambeaux, which was torches, to put out cane field fires. They were whipped while they had to put out fires in the cane fields and also tried to save some of the sugar canes. All the while, the music was playing in the background by what we can assume were other slaves. This could go on for days at a time. We can suspect many people died. The question is, why would someone maintain the energy that stems from events like this? Psychologically, it is clear the people have nothing else to do, and they wait for these events all year long. It is business. Many tourists go down to the islands for these events, and they are also maintaining very negative energy that is the motherboard of many stereotypes that African Americans live by. The islanders necessarily don't see this avenue, nor do they care. Like their location, their culture as well is stuck. In essence, no man is an island. The island mentality is very limited in its experience and knowledge of the world. This includes extensive social understanding. Due to this depression of thought, a good time is sought for at a higher rate, as the environment only provides a good time. It is important to take note on the connection with sugar. Culture during these times was in a very hot smelting period. All races of the planet has a percentage of blood in the islands. This is also seen in the spiritual systems and the carnival. The sugar was the true engine, the engine that kickstarted the entire planet. Sugar became big business because it was being shipped to Europe, not because it was being used on the slaves. There are many things that occurred behind closed doors during these times that were not written. There were many rituals. All the carnivals and the characters within them are the maintenance for these rituals. The sugar, caramel, molasses, cocaine, tobacco, and rum was and still is the human oil that expedited the first layer of industrial progression found in the fields. The second layer would be oil, plastic, and the overall process of synthesizing. The third layer is virtual technology, okay? In the next following sections, I'm giving an extensive explanation on the words that are enveloped inside the word carnival. These words not only sound similar, but the definition of these ancient words and entities fulfill the essence of the modern word they support, carnival. So carnival has the word carnia inside of it. Carnia was the name of one of the great national festivals of Sparta, held in honor of Apollo. Carnius means the god of flocks and herds in a wider sense of the harvest and the vintage, okay? Carnival in Rio de Janeiro. The Carnival is a festival held every year before Lent and considered the biggest carnival in the world with 2 million people per day on the streets. The first Carnival festival in Rio occurred in 1723. So you see it stemmed from the slave times until now. Okay. The Rio Carnival celebration dates back to 1640s. During that time, elaborate feasts were organized to give honor to the Greek wine gods. According to Greek mythology, the Romans used to worship Dionysus or Bacchus, the god of the grape harvest. The festival intrudo was introduced by the Portuguese, and this inspired the birth of the Carnival in Brazil. In 1840, the very first Rio masquerade took place, and polka and waltz took center stage. Okay. Carnus was a seer who was instructed in the art of divination by Apollo. According to the poet Priscilla, he was a son of Zeus and Europa. Carnus accompanied the Heraclidae and was killed by Hippotes with a spear for giving obscure prophecies. The prophecy element is connected to the bookman or fortune teller gypsies in attendance. Carnus hemipterus is a dipteran insect, a small-bodied and partly black-colored carnid fly. In their adult stage of life, they are blood-sucking ectoparasites of nestling birds. Blood-sucking being incorporated into the word carnus enforces the meat consumption that goes on during the Carnival. Okay. The Devil Mask. The first recorded appearance of the Devil Mask was in 1888. The Port of Spain Gazette reported that masquerades portrayed close-fitting all-in-ones with long tails, all in red. Today, this would likely be described as the Imp Mask, a subdivision group of the devil. He only represents one part of the Devil Mask band. To dress as the devil seemed to be most people's ambition. Hill writes, adding that in 1899, head masks and horns were becoming more fearful. Tails were thicker and forks longer. However, not until 1908 was the first devil band organized. Patrick Jones was the leader that inspired by illustrations in a copy of Dante's Inferno. The colors he chose for the costume were khaki and slate. His band included the entities Lucifer, a dragon, red devils, and imps. The khaki and slate clothing was transferred into America's modern-day street gangsters. The term devil mask is Carnival context and is used to identify a variation of characters. These characters are imps, Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, beast, and death. Over time, specific costuming and performance practices evolved so that specific mass characters were born out of the broad category of devil. These devils were created off of bad/negative experiences and the characteristics that stemmed from them. They are the batteries that charge our anger here in America and keep our intelligence limited, as evil represents stupidity as well. Okay. A witness who has been playing and attending this masquerade for over 50 years stated, "Devil Band is not like the ordinary bands. Every character in the mask has his own unique music to introduce him. If the music is not played, then that man is not moving. When finally the full band arrives at the house of the individual playing, the masker named Lucifer reads the book of laws carried by Beelzebub. He makes sure all members have paid their dues and to keep them from mixing with masqueraders, and then goes to put on his mask. When the moment comes for me to take up that mask and I put it on, I become a different being entirely. I never feel as if I'm human at all. All I see in front of me is devils, real, until a long while after, before I get myself to knowledge again. This activity is similar to the Loa possession activity of voodoo. There are supposedly 42 different types of devils at Devil Mask. The distinctions between the various types have blurred with time, but even today, at least 8 main ones survive: the imp, the beast, the demon, the bookman, the dragon, the job, and the job moles, and the devil proper. Regardless, the energy of the original devils remains because the celebration is still in existence. The slaves themselves could have been forced to do this carnival for the span of 100 years, and we wouldn't know anything about it. After the end of slavery, the celebrations became more public as gangs of recently liberated slaves covered in black grease, molasses, or varnish took to the streets, reveling in their freedom and scaring the life out of the upper classes. Naked but for shorts, and sometimes with chains and padlocks around their legs, they attempted to offend polite society, which they blamed for decades of suffering. What does blaming them do? Make them cry and feel bad for a day? These chains and locks are batteries to keep the slavery in place. The polite society does not get offended, and if so, it is only temporary, as is the celebration. The cries of sympathy go unheard in nature. In all reality, the carnival and all of its characters are given lame excuses for their existence, usually based upon some form of reminder that's supposed to occur towards the oppressors. The people of the islands use the carnival as an alleviation from the ill world of poverty. But during the whole time, there is no extreme strategic plans created to end this poverty. They just work the jobs provided to them and wait to dance again. Okay. So the dragon mask. The dragon beast is heavily associated with the book of Revelation and is generally chained or caged somehow, controlled by an imp, noted as the key imp for its ability to unlock the beast. The metaphorical events of this dance are an allegory to the St. George and the Dragon story. The beast often represents the gates of hell and the underworld. The dragon cannot cross water, holy water, to continue his path of destruction. His frustrations come across as he dance, while the imps, led by the king imp, continue to tease and restrain him. Helsinki Samba Carnival, which is in Finland. Helsinki is an annual samba carnival held in Helsinki, the capital of Finland, since 1991. This carnival is important based on the simple word Helsinki in combination with samba. Metaphysically, when looking at the word, you see hell and sink. This gives an allusion to the word meaning to sink in hell, in which the word samba could also be sambo. The literal etymological root to this word is Scottish for Helsing. The hell from Helsing means hall, like narrow passage, way, or neck. To cut off the neck is also to send to hell. The application is found in the fact that the women of this carnival wear almost the same exact attire as the women of the Rio de Janeiro carnival. The lively energy keeps Sambo sinking in hell. Okay. The Jamet Carnival. The word Jamet comes from the French word diameter, and this referred to the class of people below the diameter of respectability, or the underworld. It also meant behind the bridge. By the 1860s, Trinidad's poverty-stricken community, composed of stick fighters, prostitutes, chantules, dustmen, migrants, and the unemployed. The hoodlums of the ghetto had taken over the original white elite carnival. The people began to harass the passers-by out of an attempt to scare or a reminder of the past acts committed. The intention is for the elite to witness and face what they created. They began to portray sinister characters like devils, demons, and imps, threatening and outraging the upper classes. A description of the Jamet's Carnival can be found in the San Fernando Gazette of 1871, and it states, hordes of men and women, youthful in years but mature in every vice, that perverts and degrades humanity, who dwell together in all the rude licentiousness and of barbarian life. Men without aim, without occupation, and without any recognized mode of existence. Women wanton, perverse, and depraved beyond expression. L.M. Fraser, in his book History of the Carnival, noted this and gives this explanation. Whenever fire broke out upon an estate, the slaves on the surrounding properties were immediately mustered and marched to the spot. Horns and shells were blown to collect them, and the gangs were followed by the drivers, cracking their whips and urging with cries and blows to their work. After emancipation, the Negroes began to represent this scene as a kind of commemoration of the change in their condition, and the procession of the Canes Brules, used to take place on the night of the 1st of August, the date of their emancipation. After a time, the day was changed, and for many years past, the Carnival days have been inaugurated by the Canes Brules. Okay. The Jovert Carnival. Carnival is a Christian and Greek festival season that occurs before the season of Lent. The main events typically occur during February, a period historically known as Shrovetide. Carnival has a lot of public celebrations, parades, public street parties, and other entertainments. Elaborate costumes and masks allow people to set aside their everyday individuality and experience debauchery with a disguise. The daytime of Carnival, Monday and Tuesday, are dominated by costumed masqueraders. It is before Ash Wednesday. Most of these masqueraders portrayed traditional African-influenced characters, including the Midnight Robber, the Police and Thief, the Wild American Indian, the Bat, the Jab Moles, the Job Job, the Red Devil, Blue Devil, and Dame Lorraine. With the wartime presence of U.S. soldiers and the sailor mask was added. Over time, after World War II, the people started to form bands that developed into thousands of costume participants. The most influential international representation of Caribbean culture is Carnival. The Carnival was brought to Trinidad by French settlers in the 1700s. Originally, the celebration was confined to the elite, but it was imitated and adapted by their African slaves after the abolition of slavery in 1838. The practice spread into the free population. The Cambolet riots of 1881 were a turning point in the evolution of Trinidad Carnival. Carnival was originally confined to the upper classes, which rolled the streets in floats or watched from the upper stories of residences and businesses. The night was given over to the lower classes. The first few hours of Carnival Monday morning, from about 4 a.m. until sunrise, was known as Jouvert. Costumed and masked by the darkness, Jouvert allowed the wealthy to mix with the poor in relative and anonymity. Monday night had a similar but lesser function. The Blue Devil mask is anywhere from 6 to 45 devils associated with it that may change number at any time. Hold on here. And Blue Devils have been seen participating in the gay pride parades in Toronto, Canada. You identify the Blue Devil by the colored paint, generally blue, the pitchfork, and the blood guts on the tongue. There is a dance that involves hooking the foot to walk together with movements of the head and shoulders simultaneously while thrusting the pitchfork forward and screaming to the beat of the biscuit tin. Blue Devils also sometimes carry painted replicas of cutlasses, which are machetes. Okay. The Mardi Gras. The word Mardi Gras is French for Fat Tuesday and refers to the Carnival celebration. It is a practice for the last night of eating fat foods before the ritual fasting of the Lent season, on the beginning or after the Christian feast of the Epiphany, the Three Kings Day, and culminating on the day before Ash Wednesday, also known as Shrove Tuesday. Shrove is derived from the word shrive, meaning to administer the sacrament of confession to absolve. Mardi Gras arrived in North America as a French Catholic tradition. Armenian werewolves are called mardigals. I thought this was interesting because the Mardi Gras does carry the excess ravaging of the werewolf. Okay. The Trinidad and Tobago Carnival is a yearly event held on the Monday and Tuesday before Ash Wednesday in Trinidad and Tobago. Carnival was an event strictly for the white elite, similar to the Mardi Gras of New Orleans. This was celebrated through masquerade balls, house parties, and street parades with carriages. Middle-class people of color and enslaved Africans were not allowed to participate in carnival activities except when slaves were performing. Instead, white upper-class society would dress up as black men and women to display perverted practices and the racist notions that black men are childish and women are hypersexual. This festivity associated Africans with debauchery, and it racially stereotyped them as savage, vulgar, and dangerous by white elite. This activity caused white people to not get involved with the carnival, specifically because publishing and reporting activities across the world just began. The white elites worldwide definitely had an agreement amongst themselves to maintain an ecclesiastical image upon the world. It is very true that Europeans were committing the same acts and even worse in Europe during the same time period. The decline of upper-class Europe being involved with lower-class Europe during these public events began during the 1600s and fizzed out in the 1700s. So the white upper class and the white lower class in old Europe used to party together, okay, before the shifting period of the 1600s and 1700s. So that means the kings and the queens would get down there with the lowest levels of the peasants and the lepers and act like peasants and lepers, and the peasants and lepers could play the positions of king and queen. And this was like a psychological balance of freedom and understanding all layers of life and existence, I guess. And that's what was occurring during the course of their festivals. And they incorporated that same activity on African American, on Africans during this breaking island time period, and also during the beginning of a lot of these carnivals, which some of these carnivals no longer exist. I've never heard of the double mass in current time period, but the double mass went on for over 100 years in the islands in past times. Okay. So are there any questions before we get down to the carnival characters? Anything anybody want to say? Okay, I guess we have a no there. So these are the characters that are in the carnival. All right. The baby doll. The baby doll is given her name for the doll accessory that she carries. It is her symbol of single motherism. The baby doll character, a common sight during the late 19th century carnival, is a satirical portrayal of a mother with an illegitimate baby. Often the masquerader portrays a gaily dressed younger woman with a frilled dress exposing her legs, gloves, and a large poke bonnet or mob cap. In all instances, she carries a doll representing the illegitimate child. So a lot of the energy that's in the atmosphere pertaining to the baby doll is enforcing single motherism amongst Black women. This is directly related to us.
So this is the energy of the baby mama.
Right. The energy of the baby mama comes from the baby doll in the carnival, which was created hundreds of years ago.
And it was a symbol of a dog, which is a bitch.
No, it was a doll. D-O-L-L.
Oh, D-O-L-L. My bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going all over the place with that one. My bad.
I know the information may have made you a little vulgar there, brother, but
There's a little bit. There's a little bit.
Okay.
A little upsetting.
Yeah, okay. So here we go. So the first bat masqueraders in Trinidad Carnival were probably members of the early devil bands, where they joined the other infernal characters, imps, dragons, demons, in their imaginative exorcism of the suffering of the past. Okay. The Blue Devils. The Blue Devils are supposedly entities that appear during the withdrawal from high-level alcoholism. It has also been noted that these entities may also appear in the eyesight of different generations in a long generational line of alcoholism that runs in a family. What is really occurring is a bluish hue that is glossed over everything in sight during the course of a violent withdrawal. During the medieval times, the hallucination of these entities grew into double caricatures. Most likely, these many sightings come from hallucination. Once an hallucination is agreed upon by several parties and defended with violence, it becomes real, whether it is real or not. After being agreed upon, they are drawn to be given physical shape and named to be given identification. These double caricatures are seen in both miniature, playful size and a violent, large size. The smaller ones are seen in political and sickly satirical cartoons of the mid-1800s. I say sickly in reference to drawings that show these blue devils distributing torture through violent action that is representing the pain coming from the withdrawal of the alcoholism, the ailment. They are also seen in Ethiopian and medieval Catholic church murals. The Egyptian deity Amun was painted the color blue for a while during the Egyptian rule. Okay. The color has come to represent hype, any word with HYP in it, or any related hypersensitive activity. On the other side of the scale, of the same scale, that represents depression. Depression is what results after the realization of the falsehood that believing the hype was allowed. When a person's eyes are amazed and blaring white, it is a sign of excitement and hype. Excessive jumping up and down, screaming, dancing, or any extreme out of normal standard physical or mental function is hype. Blue. These entities represent the negative forces that come from the color blue, which plays out in negative human behavior. There are also positive energies that come from blue. The depression representation of the blue devils are found underneath the umbrella of melancholy. Melancholy, like depression, are both found in the medical field. Gout, morning sleepiness, and many other ailments which cause excruciating pain or turn the skin blue as if the area had been bruised were associated with the blue devils. The original stereotype of death of the medieval times was blue. After the Black Death of 1346, death was caricaturized with his modern version, the color black. Okay. And also, I found out recently that alcohol suppresses your dream state. So what happens is when you go to sleep and you're not dreaming, and because alcohol is suppressing it, it will take all of your dream and imagination energy that's supposed to occur while you're asleep, and put it into it will confuse it into your status of why you're awake. Okay. So it will take your dream energy, because alcohol suppresses the capacity to dream while you're asleep, and it will enforce that same dream imagination into your daily awake alert status. Okay. So, and that's what a blue devil looks like at a carnival. And I have many more pictures of it. So the bookman, his name comes from the enormous book he carries. It is also a metaphysical reverse of the revolutionary Duddy Bookman. In the book, this carnival character he records the names of souls that are designated to damnation. He wears a white or red devil mask while sporting a pointed goatee, medieval style pants, an embroidered velvet gown, and flowing cape with biblical scenes. This is the principal character in the traditional devil band, a representation of Satan himself that leads the group. The bookman is also referred to as the ruler. The other two groups of characters in the devil band are the imps and the beasts. His movement is waltz-like with constant bowing. Musical accompaniment is provided by an orchestra of trumpet, saxophones, bass, and drums playing conventional tunes. It is downloaded in the descendants of slaves in America that books are of the devil. This element can be found in several locations throughout history regarding the desire for information, or even to inculcate information when given to you. Hence, it will be in the form of a book. It is the element of books that have been destroyed in the Black psyche during the course of activities in the Breaking Islands. The term books has also been used as a banking accounting term, and also in jail as a conversion method for money used to buy necessities. Due to this, the Black male psyche has replaced the earning of money with the accountant term books to the conversion of money into jail victuals termed as books. The latter has been his understanding of the term. Hence, an actual book means death coming from the Duddy Bookman scenario, and means the devil in the carnival, which is kept alive today. Okay. The burroquet. Burroquet derived from the Spanish word burroquito, which means little donkey. The burroquet is constructed from bamboo so as to give the illusion of a dancer riding a small donkey. When he put his head through the hole in the donkey's neck, and the body of the animal fitted around his hips, and carries the reins in his hands. The burroquet tradition existed both in East Indian Hindu culture and on the South American mainland. In witchcraft, you will never see the donkey at a Sabbath. The donkey was rode by Jesus during Palm Sunday. It is considered a holy animal. Okay, so they reverse the energy of the holy animal into the dunce in how we treat donkeys today. Okay, the clowns. Traditionally, clowns were considered fools and carried all kinds of antics to entertain and interest a crowd. These clowns were dressed in baggy clothing with big red noses, wild hair, big shoes, and often white faces. Clowns come from the medieval fools. The medieval fool was a Down syndrome or autistic degenerate. Due to the lead poisoning and alcoholism, a lot of grown men never were mentally capable to mature. The Dame Lorraine. Dame Lorraine is called, in the land of its birth, Trinidad, and in the wider diaspora, or Mother Sally in Barbados, is a historical Trinidad Carnival character. She is characterized as a voluptuously large woman who wears a long dress and dances in the mass. According to the Trinidad and Tobago National Library, the character is imitative of the mass played by the 18th and early 19th century French planters, who would dress up in elegant costumes of the French aristocracy and parade in groups at private homes, particularly on Carnival Sunday night. List of devils, the Prince of Dark, and you see all the names here. Lucifer saying Gentleman Jinn, or the Gentleman Devil, wears a top hat and a scissor-style tailcoat. The Barons and the first Black Prestige. So as we explained earlier on the last webinar, the Barons wear that same attire. The Job, also known as the Coolie Devils, hence Coolie High. The name of this character comes from the French patois word for devil. The costume consists of loose-fitting satin trousers called candle, and with a satin blouse that has bells hanging from the end. The prop carried by this character is a whip that a masquerader can crack at bystanders or other jobs. The Job Molaise. This is one of the oldest carnival characters, similar to the Job. His name means molasses devil, because the original character would be covered in molasses. Molasses was a cheap and easily available product to make a costume for freed slaves from sugar plantations. The Job Molaise is also known for jumping around wildly and scaring bystanders with their sudden movements. An optional addition to the costume is to have a chain tied around the waist for another character to restrain the Job Molaise. Now, and also, a lot of slaves were boiled in molasses. So the molasses devil, Job Molaise, represents those slaves who were boiled in molasses, okay? The devil is also usually part of a band that has a diverse group of beasts. Other costumes or characters that would accompany the devil are the imps. Okay, the king imp is the leader of the imp band. The Agitania carries a key to open the gates of hell. The marker carries a flag to direct the band. Axe man carries an axe. Bell man carries a bell. Scale man carries a scale. Okay. Let me see here. Ladies in waiting. This is more decorative. Female version of the devil costume. Okay. Queen Patroness, the leader of the ladies in waiting. Her costume would be the most decorative of all the ladies. Okay. So the dragon. The red dragon is a very old and traditional Trinidadian character. The origins of this character comes from the Bible and other religious texts. It could be related to David and Bel, the dragon, or one of the many saint stories involving a dragon. The dragon character may also be referred to as the king beast if the dragon is a part of the devil band. He cannot cross through water, especially not holy water, so a key man is a vital companion for the dragon. The dragon is the fire beast from hell, coming to earth as a bringer of destruction, dancing through the streets. The aim of the dragon dance is to captivate and frighten its audience. Okay. The Job. Grenada is the home of the Job. The word Job is both French and patois for double devil. It is a similar name to the Job Molaise. The Job Molaise and the Job have two different histories. A Job is also known as a coolie. A coolie is a derogatory term used to identify Asian and Indian imported slaves. Coolie was used in the famous Black movie Coolie High. The Job Molaise costume is fashioned after a medieval European jester. The fashion consists of stockings on his legs, very similar to today's skinny jeans. A two-colored shirt with points at the waist. This is usually decorated with bells, mirrors, rhinestones, a cape, and a hood, sometimes with horns. He would shout, "Me Job, I now come from hell. I know you well. Pay the devil Job." Job dramatization is the alchemical life maintenance of the evils visited upon our Black African ancestors by the white slave master. Thus, these colonialists were the devils by their murderous and outrageous acts. The indigenous were the devils by their lack of intelligence, security, and provisions. Both are devils in their own form. This is reinforced by the devil trying to convince you someone else is the devil. Therefore, you don't see the horns on the devil's head when he points in another direction. Okay. Let me see here. The name Job Molaise means molasses devil. I had to go over this again in French patois. He is one of the oldest carnival characters, most likely transferred and reinvented from a slavery entity. He represents the ghost of a slave who met his death by falling into a pot of boiling molasses in a sugar factory. It is to be noted that when slaves were considered to be disrespectful to their masters, they were forced to eat their own excrement or to drink the saliva of other slaves. Other punishments were to cover the slave in molasses and tie them to live beehives. Red hot irons and hot beeswax was poured onto the heads, arms, and shoulders of slaves. It was common for a pregnant woman to have a miscarriage. This common thread of covering oneself in a black substance in today's carnival while also making the mouth bright red is called self-defense. It is a mechanism to project a physical threat. The blackness of skin is not amongst other races. To see this shade of skin coming from the mind of another race will only bring investigation, amazement, or repulsion. On the flip side of the same coin, this blackness also mimics a charred body. Hence, the body is extremely black when a slave was burned to death. Blackness is a stage of decomposition. It is a stage that all races have to go through. So, in essence, in the eyesight of other races, blackness is the death and the devil, a stage they'd rather not see since humans are designed to fight for life. The J-Rouge, or J-Rouge. When someone evil dies, he can rise again as a wolf that only feeds on human blood. Many Haitians believe that J-Rouge, cannibal, werewolf-like monsters, or evil spirits that inhabit people during the night, trick mothers into giving up their children by waking them up at night and asking if they could take the child. Sleepy mothers may answer yes or no. J-Rouges spread this curse like vampires by injecting it into unsuspecting human targets through fangs. The J most likely comes from the many genes that were supposed revolutionaries. Sorry about that. This is folklore and not the carnival. Yeah, so the J Rouge is the werewolf of Haitian folklore. Okay. And it was also stated during the medieval times that when women didn't want their babies, they would go to the woods and just feed the baby to the wolves. Okay, give the babies to the wolves. And that also developed the whole werewolf theory in the medieval times. Okay. And the close relationship in between females and dogs too is found right there. So the Lance Cod. In Haiti, there is the Lance Cod, who are masquerading people that paint themselves as black and greasy as possible to resemble the African slaves, and they carry ropes and chains as a representation of the brutality of slavery and the Haitian freedom in 1804. The Midnight Robber is usually draped in all black, wearing a cape embroidered with symbols of death and destruction. His shoes are shaped like coffins, while he adorns an oversized tombstone while blowing a whistle announcing his arrival. He has an American Wild West style in his sombrero and fashion. The hat's crown comes in different shapes and colors, such as a coffin. The robber talk is derived from the tradition of the African griot or storyteller. His speech patterns and vocabulary are imitative of his former master in broken English. Trinidad's minstrel bands are direct descendants of the troublingly racist minstrel character that was so popular in the American South in the decades after the Civil War. Minstrels really come from the medieval times of Europe. The true definition of a minstrel can be found worldwide in several different time periods and races. The original minstrel's purpose was to alleviate the pressure inside the courtroom during court with entertainment. His responsibility was to keep the peace by representing the freedom inside the balance. Blackface was not a part of the minstrel at its origins. Minstrels today are mockery. The Moko Jumbi. Moko was a common word for Igbo slaves. The Moko Jumbi derives its name from West African tradition. The Moko means healer and is an Orisha, a god of retribution. The term Jumbi means ghost and was added later by freed slaves in Trinidad after slavery. The Moko Jumbi was regarded as a protector whose towering height made it easier to see evil before ordinary men. As a masquerade during the carnival, these characters make long strides balanced on stilts that can be from 10 to 15 feet in height. This could be a throwback to the stilts of the Dogon tribe. They practice all year to walk around at this height. In the past, the Moko Jumbi was sometimes accompanied by a dwarf in similar costume, but without stilts, and to accentuate Moko's height. The Moko Jumbi's wooden stilts were hidden by long, brightly colored trousers or skirts. An elaborate jacket, feathered hat, and white mask completed his costume. And you remember early parades when we were younger. Remember Uncle Sam used to walk on stilts? So Uncle Sam walking on stilts right after this carnival would definitely be a replacement or a conquering of the Moko Jumbi, now converted into the Uncle Sam, right? So the Negre Jardin, Jovert, the character of the Negre Jardin, which means field slave, took on the ferocity of his former driver, whip and stick in hand. Negre Jardin is a character that was first portrayed by the white elite at their carnival. It was later imitated by liberated slaves after slavery was abolished. The Negre Jardin's ability to cross barriers of race and class back and forth is rooted in its authenticity. Most likely, it is symbolizing the anger and confusion of the mulatto. At a masquerade, a white elite planter could dress as a field slave, which allowed him to play a role removed from polite high society. The Negre Jardin carried a whip, cracking it like the estate drivers, while the streets were lit up with torches and the masqueraders were riled up with cries and horns. During the Cambole riots at the end of the 1800s, he was the overseer that made sure that slaves stayed in line and got the burning cane. The Negre Jardin became popular again with the white elite. He reappeared at the masquerade balls that were private and held behind closed doors. This maintains the energy of the vice, whether it's public or private does not matter. Since it was publicized before, it has already been downloaded in the atmosphere. Carrying on that practice behind closed doors keeps the ritual culturally vibrant. It maintains the fire in the blood and invites the next generation. It is important to note that before the emancipation, his costume consisted of tight-fitting satin or khaki pants reaching or just above the knee, and a brightly colored shirt with a heart-shaped panel sewn into the chest. The khaki pants and brightly colored shirt or white shirt is the same attire that the street gangsters of America wear today. Hence, the clothing is already charged with the slave master energy, as that is the position Negre Jardin played. Masks were also outlawed from usage. They rebelled against this by putting soot on their face. Okay. The Pierrots and Pierrot grenades. In English, the word means a buffoon. In French, Pierrot, diminutive of Pierre, considered a typical name of a French peasant. It is also another variation of the name Peter. The Pierrot pantomime character was a popular figure in the theaters of France from the 1500s onward. He made his first appearance in Trinidad at Carnival balls held by the upper class at the end of the 1700s. His lavish costume included a satin gown decorated with bells and hundreds of little triangles. This attire is from another fashion of jester that could be found in the medieval times: a velvet breastpiece with sequins and mirrors and a plush beret. He makes long, boastful speeches showing off a vast understanding of literature and history. His pugilistic nature sometimes led to actual fistfights. The name Pierrot Grenade means Pierrot from Granada, which is to say a mock Pierrot. He would ask you to spell something, and then he would say, no, 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 that's not the way to spell it. And he'd show you how to get it by breaking it up into syllables. The word Chicago, for instance, this poem may be the Negro's hoopty ritual. It also connects Chicago with the Caribbean in a different way. I do not spell words letter for letter, although my method is 1,000 times better. You see, every word for me is a story, and sometimes I even use allegory. And according to the situation from time to time, I does shorten into pleasant rhyme. This one I'm sure you know. The chicken in the car and the car can't go. That's the way to spell Chicago. Wild, right? Supposedly Chicago is originally enunciated as Chicago. Okay. So let's go down here to the sailor mask. The sailor mask was introduced in the 1880s when British, French, and American naval ships came to Trinidad. The costumes typically consist of a beret with the name of the ship on the rim of the beret, a tight-fitting, short-sleeve, bow-necked striped jersey, bell-bottomed Melton pants, and black or white shoes. There are several variations on the sailor mask, including. Okay. Now, what's funny about this is if you Google the words Navy blackface, you'll find a lot of pictures from early America of, Navy soldiers or sailors doing dances and doing a lot of elaborate plays and things of that nature in blackface. Okay. The Sebucan is a dance that resembles the English maypole dance. Participants typically wore masks, hats, costumes, and paper crowns. While it is now no longer performed at Carnival time, the Sebucan is sometimes performed as part of the Carnival system. Sumeri, one of the lesser-known traditional characters, Sumeri is a woman riding on a horse. It can be accepted as Burkit's female counterpart. It is based on the Hindu rite where the horse was used in worship to the goddess Durga, who is also the goddess Kali. Okay, so that whole energy right there is to incorporate female towards the hatred of male and the conquering of a male, because horse, it represents the bully male, basically, or the male of strength and violence. Okay, let's see here. The Sokeyan in Dominica, St. Lucian, Trinidadian, in Haiti, Louisiana, Grenada, and elsewhere in the Caribbean, or in Guyana and Jamaica. In the Bahamas, it is known as hag. It is a kind of blood-sucking hag. The Sokeyan is a shape-shifting Caribbean folklore character who appears as a reclusive old woman by day. By night, she strips off her wrinkled skin and puts it in a mortar. In her true form, as a fireball, she flies across the dark sky in search of a victim. The Sokeyan can enter the home of her victim through any sized hole like cracks, crevices, and keyholes. Bloodsucker Sukeyants belong to a class of spirits called Jumbies. Some believe that Sukeyants were brought to the Caribbean from European countries in the form of French vampire myths. These beliefs intermingled with those of enslaved Africans. In the French West Indies, specifically the island of Guadeloupe, and also in Suriname, the Sukonan or Sukonian is a person able to shed his or her skin to turn into a vampire fireball. In general, these figures can be anyone, not only old women, although some affirm that only women could become Sukonian because only female breasts could disguise the creature's wings. The term loup-garou, also used to describe the Sukian, possibly comes from the French mythological creature called the loup-garou, a type of werewolf, often confused with each other since they are pronounced the same. In Haiti, what would be considered a werewolf is called Jeux Rouges, meaning red eyes. As in Haiti, the loup-garou is also common in Mauritian culture. In Suriname, this creature is called a sima. Okay, let me see what we got here. I might as well read this last part. John Smith. Smith was born in Orphan in 1790 in Northamptonshire. He received his early education at Sunday school, and later on in life, he applied to be a missionary. Smith arrived in Demerara under the guidance of the London Missionary Society in 1817. He lived at the Low Reservoir plantation, where he preached at Bethel Chapel, primarily attended by African slaves. Smith experiences in the West Indies attracted many problems. He was blamed for the Demerara Rebellion of 1823, which brought 11,000 slaves from their plantations, thinking they had been lied to about freedom and emancipation. As a result of his actions, trial by court, martial, and subsequent death, whilst under imprisonment, Smith became known as the Demerara Martyr. And he was charged with promoting discontent and dissatisfaction in the minds of the African slaves and exciting the slaves to rebel. He was an agitator that failed to notify the authorities that the slaves intended to uprise. How he died and his death date are undocumented. His story may be a positive reverse from the negative energy of the English explorer John Smith, who founded Jamestown, Virginia. Okay. And this is his family crest right here. All right. And Demerara, I do believe, is a modern day brand of brown sugar. And also the Sukiant, I think, is a brand of shoes today. So that's it. Let's hear the questions. Let's get to it. What does everybody have to say about that one?
I was more interested in the conclusion because I read this. So, especially about we need a myth as a people. That was the part that intrigued me more than the carnival stuff and Mardi Gras and so forth. I've been to bunches of Mardi Gras in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge and New Orleans in particular, and they are just crazy. I just really bad energy there, and I really didn't like them too much, but it was something to check into since I'm not from that area. But I really don't have a lot of questions about all of that. It's just it's so much to take in. It's going to take me probably several months to take in all the spiritual significance of all of this and how I can, somehow incorporate it into something in my life, a way to think about it. So that's where I am right now with it.
You don't want to incorporate this energy. You want to be able to identify this energy and keep it away from you.
No, I don't mean so I understand it better, not use it.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, so understand, maybe I can write something in some of my poetry or fiction or research paper or a play or something, because I write a number, different sorts of things, or dance, because I'm a choreographer too. So,
okay.
Yeah, some way to synthesize it. Is that a better word? Sort of bring it into a way that it can be utilized in a
because this stuff is hundreds of years old, I wouldn't touch it because it's strong. Anything that's hundreds of years old has a very, it's standing still. It's in place, you see. And in order for us to develop our own mythology and folklore here as African Americans, we would literally have to wipe this type of energy completely out of the atmosphere. So that means we would have to completely be able to stop all carnivals worldwide in order for African Americans to sync together psychologically and agree upon mythologies and folklores. And what's so interesting about that is that the way the electricity of the mind works on a mass system, each little area will have their own development of different mythologies. So what's going on in Georgia isn't going to be the same that's going on in Mississippi. Mississippi isn't going to be the same that's going on in Louisiana, California, New York, so on and so forth, because we live in different regions and we're affected by the geographical location we're in and how we read existence because of that location, you see. And we'll be able to create mythologies based off of realities and create folklores based off of realities and also imaginations. And over time, we can merge those together through our migrations across the country. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah, that's where it's at with that.
Another thing, we need a hero. We need as a basis of some something, something, well, all other cultures have had heroes, and we don't have anything like that. And Black Americans have nothing like a
Well,
hero.
I mean, we've
Hero.
had Black Americans have had heroes. They just killed them.
Well, you started to get a hero, yeah. But
Yeah,
I'm not somebody beyond a politician, somebody you can actually mythologize, I guess. You know, someone you can expand their story until it's beyond real, just like say oh let's see, Apollo. It was somebody that was Apollo, but he didn't do all the stuff that he says he does in the mythology. He's not
right,
that
right.
Superman. There's some basis for reality in that. So we take this real person and sort of build it into a supernatural situation we can take forward, like all the Greeks and the Europeans right now. They came from Apollo and all of them from the Greeks. And they didn't, but that's what they say. You know, they did not do that. That's the idea. They carry that forward and they work with that, and it's part of their whole program. So that's what needs something like that. That would help us out quite a bit.
And what's interesting about that is that's already been done a little bit in the Marvel and DC comics. Like a character like Magneto is a representation of Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
And the creator, who's a white male, I forgot his name, he even states that boldly in public, you know, that he was modeled after, I think, Malcolm X and a combination of Martin Luther King, you know, and
Right.
we have there are a lot of characters in the Marvel DC world that are modeled after great Blacks from the past. Okay, so they've already done it a little bit. I don't know if that blocks us from being able to start off doing that thing, but regardless, we would have to, the information and the procedures that I'm presenting would actually have to be studied and refined themselves before we could even start doing that with certain characters, you know. And you know, it's going to take a lot of study. It took hundreds and hundreds of years to develop caricatures that we understand today, like the leprechaun and things like that. You know, it took a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of focus, a lot of and then there's on the flip side of the same coin, it couldn't have been anything of that at all. It could have just been all chaos that developed these entities over time. The fact that the culture kept the entity alive is all that happened. Whatever the next generation did with that entity was the chaotic implements that were put inside to develop its character. You see what I'm saying? And then it just went on next generation. Next generation did their thing with it. Next generation did their thing with it. And it could be chaos, you know, and then it could also be mathematically done and done with precision. So, or it could be both being used at the same time. So, you know, that has to be approached first, and that method has to be refined, and we need to be reading a lot more ancient literature that will help us with those developments. You see what I'm saying? So,
yes, I'm doing that.
You know? So, Miss Clark, come on, Shock, hit me with something.
I got nothing, brother. This was great. This was good.
Well,
Steph, you got anything you want to contribute, or we are going to go into our affirmation of power?
Kenan, you did an excellent job. I don't know how you got all this information, but dude, you hit my soul. Ever since I've been listening to you read this book, it's like, dude, this is what I be seeing in my dreams. This is what I be seeing in my mind. And I thought I was the only one for all this time. My family had me committed, dude. So it's like, I love you. So you are definitely going to hear from me in your email.
Okay,
you did an
appreciate it.
excellent job. I love you, dude.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
So, well, what did y'all feel about, you know, these characters being in the carnival and being the root of stereotypes in our African American culture today? Like, that is the biggest element that's going on here. And we have to understand that all of these carnivals that stem from South America all the way to Helsinki, Finland, and could be in other places that I didn't reach, are the battery of the maintenance of that operation of those stereotypes.
Well, I think simply put, once you learn what has happened, that spell can no longer be taken over on you.
That
So I
right
just think
there.
that this information just needs to get in front of more people, and more people need to get interested in it. But once they hear it, it's like an invisible shield or an invisible veil dissipates and breaks up.
Right.
And now it has no power. So I think it was Rhonda was talking about, how can we use this? Or do we need our own mythology? Well, our own mythology is demystifying their mythology.
Mhm.
Which
Yeah.
is all voodoo
That's the
centered.
first part.
Right. Which
Yeah,
That's the
is
first
carnival.
step.
first
Right.
step.
So
Yeah, you gotta know what happened, and then why it happened, right? So this is epistemology, right? This is called episteme or epistemology, how you know what you know. So once we have the epistemology, then that no longer has an effect over us. We're no longer under that spell. And
Right.
as we break multiple spells, we create our own mythology.
Right. Within that, right. And well, like I stated earlier, we would have to completely stop these carnivals.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are a maintenance battery. They are you have to understand that it's all battery operated. Like it has to be renewed every year. It has to be refreshed. It has to be continued. It has to be verified. It has to be accepted by the people as a normality. And that's what's going on. I mean, Shock, do y'all see these stereotypes that are embedded with this carnival situation?
Of course.
I mean,
of course.
it's disgusting. I mean, but then at the same time, it's based off of the poverty of these regions. They have no other way to eat but to rely on the carnival.
They make in carnival.
Okay. They have no other way to eat but to rely on the tourists and the fascination of all the creation of these costumes and everything for this carnival. There are even some islands that wait all year for the carnival because they have no import or export. They have no business with the world, So
Excellent work.
Yeah, this is the root of it. This is the section that extremely pissed me off. And I never knew that the carnival was tied in with voodoo or tied in with African slavery or none of that until I studied it for this book. But go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
The part that was interesting also was what goes on in the cruise, the Mardi Gras cruise, the secret meetings before the actual Fat Tuesday thing. And in in Baton Rouge, the white people had this stuff going on. It starts in January or right after Christmas. They go in these secret meetings and parties. Oh, it's just really creepy. It's just, I know a lot of stuff is going on. I feel things, but I don't know what they're doing. And in your book explains, oh, that's what it is. Okay, I got it now. Thank you so much, Keenan. That's what I needed to know, that because I've experienced that so many times from the outside.
So you grew up in Louisiana?
I lived there for 20 years.
Woo! I'm glad you made it out.
I'm so glad to get out of there.
Yeah, that place is crazy. So, I mean, just the energy. I've never been to New Orleans, but I've driven across the country a couple of times. And when you cross that state line to go into that Louisiana and you hit that I-10,
everything changed.
Feel it. It just woof.
From the ground up.
Yeah,
first
it's
feel
crazy.
It on the highways messed up. When you get there, when I first came there, the first thing I smelled was sulfur. There was a big sulfur mine used to be on the tin. I don't smell it anymore. I said, where did we just come to hell, or what is going on? And it was a smell of sulfur in the water. I said, don't y'all smell this sulfur? He said, no, we don't. I stopped smelling it too. When I first got there, I smelled sulfur all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's just eerie down there.
So you're verifying that the same methodology that I just presented about white people going into these meetings and stuff before the carnivals is still going on in the same format today.
Every year They'll be on it in December, January, they get started. And and all their floats. And I did say, oh yeah, it is about Greek and Catholics because they have so many floats. And we go down there for the parade. The last of it, I just go for the parades just to do something. And there's a lot of Greek ideas going on, old costumes, all of that. Everything about ancient Greece that they can put on a float and kind of put a ritual with it. They got all that going on. And the Catholics are all over the place. Anyway, they got big old statues of Mary and Jesus in people's front yards and stuff. I'm talking about big statues all around. Oh, and the cemeteries are above the coffins are above the ground. It's the freakiest thing. The first time I saw it in this little cemetery in Baton Rouge, I thought somebody was selling ancient coffins or something. I didn't realize that was a cemetery. It's just crazy.
And the craziest thing about it is that a lot of Black people are involved and they don't even know what's going on.
I know.
They don't even know what's going on.
They get so happy about Mardi Gras. Oh my God. You can get killed down there on that night, the last night. Don't do that unless you don't value your life too much. I'm serious. That's New Orleans on Bourbon Street. Don't do it if you don't have to. It's not good.
Well, all right, family.
Okay,
so
I have one more comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm driving right now, so excuse me. Keenan, my whole life, I hated this world. When I was a little girl, I used to tell my daddy, I want to go somewhere. And we would go somewhere. And then I'd tell my daddy, I want to go home. This place has never felt my home. I never liked this place, and you are giving me the pieces that I needed. I have searched my whole life to understand why I felt like this. Thank you. And brother, you would be definitely getting a whole lot of emails from me.
Okay. That's fine. My email's open. KeenanBooker83@gmail. So, well, I appreciate it. I think that's the call for the affirmation, Mr. Shock. You waiting on it. I see you there. You ain't gonna hide from me.
All right, family.
You ready to get the hell on. I get it.
No,
And the Helsinki. He ready to get
Yeah, I'm getting ready to get the hell out of hell.
no.
This is absolutely. No, it has been an amazing 6 weeks. And the information is not something that I ask the people to just download one time. You need to really study this, go back, watch the replays. And the more you watch and the more you listen and learn, the deeper you go into breaking the spells so that you'll be able to travel in these various different places, but you will not be infected or affected. You might be a little affected, but you won't be infected by it because you know what you're looking at now. You know the history, you know where it's coming from. So I just want to give thanks to Amma and the ancestors for Keenan Booker for putting this work together. And we give thanks by saying, I am one with first frequency.
I am one with first frequency.
I am one with the first thought idea.
I am one with the first thought idea.
I am one with the firstborn people.
I am one with the firstborn people.
I am one with the only one.
I am one with the only one.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And so it is.
So it is.
All right, family.
All right.
I'll see you soon. Peace, everybody.
Bye-bye.
You know we'll be talking.
Thank you. Thank you, Keenan.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Hotep.
Bye-bye.